Hey guys, so another morning and it's getting even darker here in Gothenburg, but I kind of like it. I don't know, there's something about all these lights and the dark that makes it's very relaxing. But enough about that, let's get into it. So yesterday I read a extremely good article by one of my absolute favorite engineers. His name is Jake Archibald, and you may know this guy as Mr. Service Worker, because he is Mr. Service Worker. He has so many great tech talks about service workers. He is charming out into his fingertips. He is as British as you can humanly possibly want somebody to be. The only person that is more British is probably Oliver Turner from Ticketmaster, which is one of my favorite people in the world, and, well, Stephen Fry. But you can't compete with Stephen Fry. Anywho, so he posted a little article about Netflix, and Netflix, for not that long ago, had released some information stating that by removing React from the client side of their application, they could reduce their overall load time on their webpage by 50%, and that sparked a little bit of a controversy in the React community. And some people kind of said, made the argument that they were kind of bash talking React, or like that this was a negative reflection on the performance that React provides. And I wanted to touch on that a little bit, and Jake touches on it in his article as well, where he basically states that, sending less stuff to the client, he's talking about a lot of different things, but the essence of what he's saying is that, by sending less to the client, you actually get this performance boost. And that frameworks in general are he states that he's been an advocate of not using frameworks because of for the various reasons. And I thought I was going to join in on this and tell you something that I've been thinking for a long time. I'm actually working on my own tech talk about this very topic. So what I wanted to talk to you about is that I am a React advocate. I have been using React professionally for a few years now, long enough to tell you that being one of the more, I'm not saying experienced, that's a strong word, but I've been using it for long enough to tell you what the strengths and weaknesses, at least from an application development point of view, is. And the thing with React is that my first tech talk, the first thing I ever did publicly when it comes to speaking in the IT world, was a tech talk that I called Things that React has taught me. And one of the key points I make about React as a framework is that React gives you what I call a blueprint for how to structure a web application. I believe, and I actually say that the problem, or rather the power of React, in my opinion, doesn't come from the framework itself. It comes from the idea that the framework popularized. And the idea that the framework popularized was modules and centralization of information. Now, what I mean by that is that if you open up a React component and you look at that file, if you've done things correctly, you should be able to know everything that there is to know about that component from simply looking at that one file. What that allows you to do is to reason about a single portion of a larger system, and that's very important. I've made other videos where I say that I don't, like when I write code, I write it from the perspective of the code. I don't write it with domain knowledge, because as soon as you start assuming things, just because you right now know stuff about the global scope or the whole system, that allows you to write code basically write the code that you're writing right now. What I find is that a lot of developers will write worse code because they know stuff about what's going to happen previously in the execution of the program. That's very very anti-modules. If you think about it, when you create a library, you have no idea who's going to use it, so you have to account for stuff. It changes the way that you think about the code you're writing. You need to start to think about what happens in different cases and corner cases, because you don't know what's going to where you're going to run your code, right? That's very important. And so that's what React brings to the table. It creates this scalable, modularized way of structuring your application. However, I actually said in my first tech talk as well that I don't think React, I think React is a great tool, and I think that it's teaching the IT world something extremely important today, or rather it's popularizing it, because there's been languages around that does this as well, teaching library, what I like to call it library-oriented development, or modules, Lego bricks, if you will. Having that mindset is coming from React, or being popularized by React now, and functional programming and all that good stuff. However, what I think is very important, and I said that as well, is that I don't think that in the future we're going to use React. I think that the most important thing to take away from this is the lessons that React are teaching us. Redux, Flux, functional programming, composition, modules, all that stuff. And that is the beauty of that, is that that's applicable to everything. You don't have to have React to do that. I actually am working right now on a tech talk where it's, I think I named it React is not a silver bullet, because one thing that I find that a lot of people are doing is that they're just defaulting to React right off the bat, or a framework. Like the first question they ask is, all right, which framework do I use to build my application? And I see people who, in my opinion, are kind of, it's almost like we're coming back to jQuery days again, like where a tool becomes so popular and so standard that people don't even, people with less understanding of how, of the web, actually just default to using that. They don't even consider that there might be a better solution for it. And I've long argued that I think that React has become so strong and powerful that it has the same problem as jQuery. Like, everybody used jQuery right off the bat because the tool was so popular. And I think React is there today. So what I argue is that if you really think about it, and I think that's something that Netflix realized, that there is actually a use case for React. Maybe you shouldn't just use it without thinking it through. Because the thing which I think Jake Archibald made a really good point of is that a framework is a compromise. Be really sure, and I think he's absolutely right, you have to be sure that the framework is going to give you value, because it will affect your performance, because it's bigger, it's much bigger. I mean, think about it, if you have less code, the execution of your program will be quicker. It's very simple, it's not a complicated thing. And I don't think that what Netflix was saying that made people upset is that React is bad or it's unperformant. I think that what they were saying is that we realized that, hey, for this use case over here, we didn't need it. And that's not being negative, that's just being sane. I mean, sending less stuff to the client and just rendering things with web standards is much better. If you can get away with that, you should. I mean, we should aspire to that. I don't think, and I think you think about it the wrong way. I think people are thinking about it from the perspective, oh, they don't want to use React because it's unperformant. No, they realize that, hey, we can actually get away from using React, because React should be able to help, it should help you. But if it doesn't provide you more value, or it, in essence, then you shouldn't be using it. You shouldn't just buy into something and use it like a zealous religious person. You should think about why you're using it. And here are and this, I'm spoiling my tech talk a little bit, but what I argue is that for me, there's two different types of applications where you need to consider React versus not React. And I think that you should use React if you are making a web application that has need for a lot of dynamic content re-rendering. And a good example of that is Gmail or Google Mail. Now, such an application, a web-based client like that, can't just send you to a new page. They need to be able to dynamically re-render the content on the page, because they want the user experience to be that you stay on the same page all the time and you just switch between different routes and different tools and all that stuff. That sort of tool is not behaving like a standard web application, so it actually needs this. But if you're just making another web page, like a web shop or something that with a lot of static content with images and links and stuff like that, I wouldn't even try to use React because there's really no benefit in doing so. The web standards are really great today, and you can actually build that in just vanilla JavaScript. There's no need for React. So here's my tip. Think it through before you use React. It's a great tool, but if you can get away with just web standards, that's even better.